You have cancer. 3 words that change a life forever. We would like to offer another 3 words. Be an overcomer. Welcome to the 1% Podcast, where our conversations with other cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers allows us to give you that extra boost you need to face your challenge head on, live life from a new perspective, and forge a path that keeps you moving free and clear. Now, welcome your host and cancer survivor, Truett Taylor.
Welcome everyone to the 8th episode of the 1% Podcast, the show where we dig deep with cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers in order to give you the 1% you need to keep pushing forward. On today's episode, you have the opportunity to hear one of the most inspirational stories I've ever shared. Today's guest, Cherie, will share with you how to get back up each time life knocks you down. So prepare to listen and get 1% better. Welcome to Cherie's story.
Cherie was diagnosed in 2013 with chronic lymphocytic leukemia in her early 40s. She is currently a mother to 2 beautiful daughters and a chef here in Georgia. Cherie, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Truett. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I know the first time I had talked to you prior to this conversation, I had heard a little bit of your story and I thought, wow, that's something that people definitely have to hear, just considering your unique circumstances, the life you had before being diagnosed, all the things that have happened since then. So I'm really excited to share your story. Why do you think it's important for people to, or for you to actually share your story and to people to listen today?
Yeah, I think it's important because I think we all can learn from each other. And I think, as you go through life, there are certain hurdles that we have. And if you know someone who has gone through it and you hear it and you see maybe some of the tricks or the tools that they use to get through it, I think it's extremely helpful as you move forward in your own healing and your own recovery.
Absolutely. What do you hope the listeners were going to take away from your story today?
Not to give up, to focus on the little things and find a support system that is strong for you. It's your safety net. It's your go-to place. It's your safe place.
Perfect. I think absolutely when people hear your story, they're going to, again, the quit's going to go away and then their life. So let's go ahead and get started. So tell us a little bit about your life prior to your diagnosis. I know you've been through a lot prior to finding out that you had leukemia, but tell us a little bit about your life as far as your family life, your health, and just your general approach to life.
All right. Besides my 2 wonderful daughters who are 23 and 20 now, my life prior to my diagnosis was pretty grim, honestly. I had just moved to Georgia from Arizona with my family in 2010. And about 2 months into our residency here, my 17-year marriage suffered this really unexpected, devastating blow. I found out my husband was actually having an affair. So this painful moment in my life, it really started me down a journey that I never wanted or that I never expected. And unknowingly, there were so many other twists and turns that were yet to come. This caused me in my life to question God. I'm a faith-filled woman, and it caused me to question God on more than one occasion in my life. During this moment in my life, my oldest, her name is Melanie. She was turning 16. My youngest daughter, she was turning 13. And at that time, I was 39 myself, and 40 was closing in fast. So I was at a point where I had to re-educate myself or reinvent myself, as I say. So after being a stay-at-home mom for years, I decided to go back to school. I had to do something. I had to get out of this corner that I felt like I was backed into. So I went to school. I gained my culinary education at Lee Cordon Bleu College of Culinary Arts. So there I studied baking and pastry, which I absolutely love. So it landed me this pastry supervisor position at the Marriott Marquis in Atlanta. And ultimately, I wound up being a store chef at Kroger in Peachtree City. The stress and pain of knowing that portion of my life or my marriage was ending was difficult. And I was trying to navigate not only what I was going through, but what my daughters were going through. But nothing was in comparison to getting the call from my family member that my mother, Veronica, or as we know, lovingly called Ronnie, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So while I was going through all this stuff in my personal life, I was also losing my mother at the same time. She spent only 4 months battling the disease before cancer took her life. Ooh, this is hard. Sorry.
Take your time.
Thanks. Whew, this is tough. She died while I was attending Lee Cordon Bleu, and she was only 70 years old. She actually died on my daughter's 17th birthday, which was another difficult day. I felt crushed. I felt gypped. My heart was broke. So at that moment, I thought my life was really spiraling out of control, and I was in so much emotional pain. And little did I realize this is just the preparation of what was yet to come.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy.
It is. It is going to get more complex. So then there'll be a point where that I too was going to hear a cancer diagnosis, not once, but twice.
Wow. So life prior to cancer wasn't that easy. I've talked to a lot of people so far, and everyone I talk to has a different outlook on life. Some things were great. Sometimes cancer hit them at their worst possible time. It was just another layer added on to the difficulties that they were going through. But you said something a second ago, which I've heard a lot as well too. And I want 100% believe that lots of times the things that happen to us that we don't expect are, preparation for other things. And
Absolutely.
And you mentioned, some tough moments there where, you were having to go through all these things and just seemed to compound on you. And, I think it's so natural and so real to, question why God would put you through these things. And, not just why, but why so much at once.
Right.
And, again, it says a lot about you. And I think that's one of those questions where there's no way to answer that or to find the answer to that until you see, like, you go through things in the future, and whatever plans are laid out before you, like, you realize, you look back and those moments really shaped how you thought about things and what it prepared for you as you moved into different stages of your life. So take us to the moment where, what kind of symptoms were you having prior to going to the doctor, and just take us to the day where, you unfortunately found out that you were diagnosed.
Okay. Well, of course, like we all get, you don't feel well, you feel sluggish, you don't really know what's going on. So it was November 2013. I wasn't feeling well, and they went to see my primary care physician for a checkup. So we drew the blood like, they typically do, and run the labs. By the time the labs came back, the doctor said everything looked normal, but that my white blood cells looked a little elevated, and that it was nothing to be alarmed about, and that we would recheck those same white blood cells again in about 3 months. So I thought, oh, okay, no problem. So February rolls around 3 months later, and those white blood cells were again elevated. So, we continued to monitor the situation in 6-month intervals after that, until my primary care physician decided it's time to move forward and get a doctor that could determine what was going on with me. I didn't think much of it until he handed me the card that said Piedmont Cancer Institute on it. I was blown away when I read the card. I'm like, cancer? I'm like, me? I'm like, it can't be. So he reassured me that it was just precautionary and probably nothing. So I thought, okay, so I'll make the call and we'll go through what we need to do. So I called the oncologist office and was seen for the first time in August of 2015. And that day, I went alone. So my husband and I, at that time, were separated and living in 2 separate residences. Reconciliation had failed. I remember sitting in the waiting room alone, and I was looking at all the people sitting there being seen for cancer. I felt sad. I felt for all of them, and I thought, this is what it must have been like for my mother, just sitting here, waiting. And little did I know I'd be amongst a crowd later on, sitting and also waiting. I got called back for the labs, and what seemed like so many vials of blood taken later, I waited in the room alone for the doctor to come in. And of course, you sit in those rooms and you wait and you think, gosh, I've been here, it felt like an eternity. And it's probably only, probably be a few minutes. But soon the door swung open and this petite little man stepped in, and he introduced himself as Dr. Bender. So there was no sugarcoating. As soon as he walked in, he kind of went right into it. And he said that there are two types of leukemia. He said acute, and he said, which is the bad one? He goes, you don't have that. So I thought to myself, thank God. And he goes, and chronic, which is the one you do have. And that was it. So I sat on the table with the little white paper underneath your legs, it's all crinkly. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm like, did he just say I have chronic lymphocytic leukemia? And he sure did. He called it CLL for short, so I always just refer to it as CLL. And he said that this is something that is normally found in older patients, usually 65 and older, and that I would have to have my blood drawn every 6 months so, we can monitor it. The thing about CLL is it's not curable, but it's treatable. And eventually I will need chemotherapy, but not the type that causes hair loss. So there are some small blessings every day in our lives that we need to focus on and look at, that we just have to look closely and recognize them. Ironically, this would not be my only diagnosis. In February 2017, I went for an annual mammogram. And this visit was definitely a little bit different because for the first time, they had new technology and they were offering this 3D mammogram. I thought, this is great, new technology. So I jumped all over the opportunity, even though it wasn't covered under insurance. Little did I realize at that time, that would probably be the best $100 I spent. The radiologist read the mammogram and recommended I return for an ultrasound of my left breast. So you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, what else can happen, right? So my heart sank, and then there were 4 months of testing that were yet to come. I set up an ultrasound appointment as the next step, and the radiologist recommended more tests of that mass that we discovered. Now I needed a biopsy. By this time, my nerves were pretty shot. I went in for the biopsy. The results come back and they're inconclusive. So I'm like, okay, now what? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. How many times can we go through this? So now the last step had to be surgery. So I scheduled surgery for June 21st of 2017. So on that day, when I'm sitting there with my family, the doctor comes in, and before she rolls me into the back, she actually prayed with all of us, which I was just completely touched by. I remember she was asking God to guide her hands during this procedure, and I was touched. It brought tears to my eyes, actually. So that was that little blessing, that you get day in and day out, to give you that push to forge ahead. So after surgery, I remember waking up and I grabbed both breasts and I was like, wow, I've got 2 of them. This is good. And again, those small blessings, I didn't know if I was going to wake up with 1 or if I was going to have 2. So they sent the mass out, and it came back that it was a precancerous tumor. So again, I was just blown away in my life that I feel like I dodged another bullet. So I never knew that, and this was explained to me by my oncologist, that before breast cancer becomes stage 1, it actually goes through like these 4 mini stages. So I was in those 4 mini stages before it was going to become stage 1. So I'm so thankful that the 3D mammogram existed and that I was able to make the choice that day to have it done. It was caught in those crucial moments before becoming stage 1. I just feel so blessed that I had that opportunity and I made that choice, and is able to talk about it today.
Yeah. So in 2013, when you were first diagnosed with the form of leukemia that you had, 4 years later, you already, you're getting this 3D ultrasound, and all of a sudden they found this precancerous stages, and they were able to go in and get that. Tell us a little bit about your treatment for the leukemia. What kind of chemo or radiation, or what's been your treatment plan so far with that diagnosis?
Well, right now everything is just, we're in a holding pattern. So every 6 months I do have to get my blood work checked. There are times where it does spike, and then I have to go in every 4 months. So we're definitely monitoring it right now. In my mind, I just keep getting up every day and I keep pushing ahead. When it gets to a point where I need to go in, I will. But I just keep getting up because I know it's something that is treatable, not curable. So as we go through this is something that could potentially become full-blown leukemia, because it is usually found in older patients. And being diagnosed in your 40s, I might have a longer climb coming up ahead.
Okay. So again, like a lot. This is when I hear your story, I'm just, it's very heavy just based off of everything that you've said so far. And, again, I appreciate you being able to speak about this. I know it's not something that's easy to share and to relive, I would think is in a way too. Just so, again, I appreciate that. So, we all have these moments where, I'm sure you've had many days where you've been sitting there thinking like, again, like, why me? Why do I keep fighting? Why do, all those questions that we have.
Right.
And
Right.
in those moments where, you wonder again, like, why, God, why have you put this all on me? And those moments are different for everyone, and they last longer for certain people, or, some people just, bypass all that and don't know where to turn in a lot of ways. And can you tell us about the moment where, or it could be a collection of moments, and you've mentioned a couple so far, but where you decided that, I'm not going to be a victim of circumstance anymore. I'm not, going to dwell on all the negative things, but I'm actually going to make that pivot. And, regardless of how this ends, living with cancer is not it's not the great story of people being a survivor and not having to deal with cancer anymore and all those things like that. So it's like living with it is a very different story to be told. But the way you live with it, I think, is what is so inspiring for people to hear. So can you tell us about that moment where you had to make up your mind, like, okay, I'm not going to, completely, ignore my relationship with God. I'm going to, trust him to get me through this. And, this is just how I'm going to perceive all this going forward.
Exactly. So for me, just like you said, it just wasn't one pivotal moment. And I think some people have it in them to get up no matter what. And then for me and my family, we call that like fire in the belly. What's that desire? What's that push? What's that fire? So don't get me wrong, you talk about God and like, why me? I've had my crying, screaming matches with God. I was depressed. I stopped going to church for a while. But I know deep down inside, I had to get up. I had to stop being that lost. And I always say stubborn sheep that was out in the pasture. I had to go back to church. I had to get up. And I had to ask God, forgive me for hating him and blaming him for what I was going through. And that I had to be a role model for my daughters. I had to keep moving forward for my family because there wasn't a dad around. There wasn't a husband there. So, I just had to keep moving forward. And, the funny thing is, during all this time, you and I talked about this once before, that my family, we love the Rocky movies. We're from the Northeast, and we love the Rocky movies. Well, one year, my daughter, my youngest daughter, Diana, she got me a pair of these Rocky shorts for Christmas. And she says, Mom, she goes, I've never seen anyone get beaten up so hard and keep getting back up. So I was so touched. It symbolized how many hits I took and how I just kept moving forward. So, and there's one quote, I don't know if you're a Rocky fan or your listeners are, but there's this one quote from the latter Rocky movies where he's giving advice to his son outside on the street. And it's become my mantra all these years. And it goes like this. It says, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows, and it's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it'll beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life, but it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. And that's how winning is done. And I'm not sure what the future holds, but with the support of my family and my faith in God, I have to keep going. And we all do. And I'm just so blessed to have just such a wonderful family.
No, yeah, it sounds like to me that's something. I remember you telling me that before. And so where are your Rocky shorts now? Do you have them somewhere like hidden in the house? Or?
I have them in my drawer with all my shorts. And when I need them, I look at them, I pull them out. So it's one of those things. It's that little inspiration, that little push. And that's when I talked about earlier about having that family around you to help be that net, be that support system, Yeah,
absolutely. So two things that have stood out to me so far, what you said, that when you were going back for your surgery, you said you woke up and you felt to make sure you still had two kind of situation, but prior to having that surgery, the doctor took a moment to pray with you and your family. And I think at that moment, if you were still trying to fight and blame God and everything else and stuff like that, you probably wouldn't have received as much comfort as that gave you. And
I agree.
And the very fact that that is real though. Like it is, there's nothing wrong with having those shouting moments with God where you're questioning everything, because that's, we don't understand things, and that's how we communicate, and when we're upset and everything. And so I think people listening, like, that feel guilty about those moments, like, you shouldn't feel guilty about that, because that's a real life moment where that's how you're communicating, and those are real one-on-one.
It's really emotion. It's absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel like that's the kind of relationship God desires for us anyways, not just the, prayer when you wake up, pray over your food, and pray when you go to bed kind of lifestyle, where you have those real intimate conversations and relationships, because just like any other relationship, that's where you feel the strongest bond, and that's what brings you closer together. So those moments and stuff that you had, I think, again, going all the way up into the point where the doctor had that prayer for you, and then, the shorts that you have, I think are amazing. When you first told me that, I thought this is so awesome. And how cool is it of your daughter to like pick that out for you too? So
I know. It's like, mom deserves a pair of Rocky shorts. That was just so awesome. And the funny thing is to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, I think it's easy to go to church when things are going well. It's tough going to church when things aren't going so well, and that's the moment where you need to lean on your faith and your family and dig in and get through that tough time, because it won't always be dark. It won't be dark forever.
Absolutely. I love, again, back to your shorts, like how that reminds you every day. And I've said this before to a lot of different people, but I feel like at certain points in life, you either need to be taught or reminded. And those shorts are your reminder every day that you're going to get back up and keep fighting, and, fighting for your family, and fighting for all the things that you still want to pursue in life. And I think that's so amazing. And this isn't the, oh my gosh, cancer's all over with, happy life kind of story. And which is why I wanted to talk to you, because you can still go through this diagnosis and have a high quality and a great perspective on your life, which to me, and being a cancer survivor myself, I know how bad it is when you're going through it, but not knowing where it's going to end, to me, is always an extra layer that it takes, even more strength to continuously go through that. So, it's
always in the background. You're right. It's always in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
What's this going to be today?
So I think, it makes you even more of an amazing person to be able to go through this and continue to move forward through that. As you continue to move through this, and, the things that pop up and stuff, tell all of our listeners, what's your life been like? So I tell everybody there's a pre-cancer and a post-cancer, but, there's not necessarily a post-cancer situation. This is almost like your life before you had cancer and your life during your cancer diagnosis. Tell everybody how your life's been adjusted, whether it's a new regimen or a new lifestyle, or just your whole new perspective on life since you're living with this diagnosis.
Well, in the beginning, when we started out, and I said my life was pretty grim prior to the diagnosis. So my life now, I've learned not to sweat the small stuff, and it's no longer grim. We have a couple sayings in my house, and one of my favorite is, it's the little things. And if you sit down and think about it, it truly is. It's someone sitting in the coffee pot at night, so all you have to do is hit the start button in the morning. It's someone making dinner after you've worked a long shift, or it's that hug when someone needs it. It's those small, simple things. It's someone holding the door for you when it's raining. So to me, it's all those little things, and I just don't sweat the small stuff anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't bring my mother back. It doesn't, why get upset about something that you probably can't change anyway?
Absolutely. What kind of advice do you have to people that are listening that, again, aren't necessarily cancer survivors, but people that are currently going through their diagnosis? What kind of advice do you have to give to them that are currently going through that to basically change their perspective on life?
Well, I think first of all, you are your own best advocate in regards to your health, and follow your gut. Don't give up. And you have to understand that no matter how bad you have it, someone else has it much worse than you do. So find time to like pay it forward, do something for someone else in need. That takes the focus off of your pain and your own sadness. So it'll put things back into perspective for you too. And you know what? And then just like we go back to the Rocky shorts, when you get hit, just get up, keep moving forward, put those Rocky shorts on and keep going. You have to. You have people that are counting on you. You have to do it for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head by saying that kind of advice. Just the getting up part. The up and down game is so hard, and being able to get back up each time. Again, you're fighting for something, and cancer doesn't only affect you; it affects everybody that's connected to you. And I know you guys have a very close family, and so every time something happens to you, it happens to them as well. So
it's definitely a ripple effect for sure.
And the same way when you have negative things hit you, your positivity affects everybody in your family as well. So they can see you do that. Imagine, you have young daughters, like what that's doing for them when they have a moment in their career or a relationship where they can turn to their mom and say, look, my mom's went through all of this. I can make it through this tough moment that I'm having currently in life. So your life is a blueprint in a way to the people that are surrounding you, which I think, I know it's not the way you probably would have chosen things to go, but the very fact that you're going through it the way you are speaks volumes about, who you are, your faith, and the message that you want to put out to everyone, because a lot of people give up, and you've chosen not to give up. You've chosen to keep pushing forward. And again, this is the type of message that people need to hear when they feel like no one's around and no one knows what they're going through. Like, there are people out there like you who have had it, pretty bad, but all that aside, like your desire to fight and your desire to have a healthy perspective outweighs all the negative things that have happened to you, which, again, it makes you truly amazing. So I think, it's awesome for you to be able to share your story about this.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know my story is, different from everyone else's. And like I said before, some people have it and had it worse, so you got to accept where you are, keep moving forward, keep going, don't give up, and lean on each other and find people that can be your best support system for sure.
Absolutely. Well, this podcast, again, it's to highlight you and the type of person that you are. I'd like to thank you for sharing your story. I want to end our segment today by asking you 5 questions to let the audience know a little bit about you. I think it's a fun way to end the segment where people can get a peek into your life a little bit and who you are. And so first question I have for you is, name 2 things that motivate you.
Ooh, my family and food. Oh, and that first cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee. Okay. Do you have any supplements that you want, or products that you want to recommend for our listeners?
I actually really don't. I just try to eat healthy. I try to, even when I go out and do a lot of cooking at home, exercise is important. I'm having a good, healthy mindset.
What's the last book you've read?
Oh, this is a good one. I read Danny Gokey's book, Hope in Front of Me, Find Purpose in Your Darkest Moments. So if you haven't read it, get it. It's a great read. It kind of helps you in the mindset that you're in as well. Now,
as a chef, what's your favorite recipe?
Okay, well, you know what I love? I love a good filet mignon. Creamy chicken Alfredo, too. That's a really good one. Oh, and for dessert, it'd probably have to be a pot de creme. And if you don't know what that is, it's like a coffee-flavored pudding, because I love coffee. And actually, chocolate ice cream. Who doesn't love chocolate ice cream?
Perfect. So whenever I post this, I'm going to make sure you give me at least one of those recipes.
Oh, I can. Oh, if you like coffee and a coffee pudding, I'll get you that pot of creme. It's easy to make and it's delicious.
And last question is, what are 3 items on your bucket or life list that you want to accomplish going forward?
So I know we talked about this once before about I don't have something I call a bucket list. To me, I just think that has a negative connotation to it. It's my life list. So a couple things that are on my life list, the 3 things that I can think of, I always want to ride a mechanical bull for whatever reason. I want to learn how to drive a stick shift, and I'd like to go to Italy someday.
Awesome. Well, I told you where you can ride a mechanical bull out here in Georgia. So that
That's right.
that invitation's still open over here.
We'll have to do that.
There you go. Perfect. Well, Ms. Cherie, again, thank you for everything today. Your story, really, honestly, inspires me. And, I've heard a lot of stories from a lot of different people, and your story sticks out to me tremendously just by your attitude and your responsibility to your family, and then just what you pick up and go with and run with every day in your life. So thank you again for taking time today to share your story with our listeners, and the thousands of people that listen to this podcast that are going to get, inspired and really, value added to their life. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. So again, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for having me. I can't thank you enough.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again, and we'll be in touch soon, okay?
Sounds wonderful. Have a wonderful day.
We appreciate you spending time with us on today's episode and encourage you to continue the conversation to help you keep pushing forward. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as ways to recommend a guest and connect to Truett personally, head over to 1%podcast.com. Be sure to join us next time for more stories of inspiration right here with Truett Taylor on the 1% Podcast.